Hello and welcome to the second New South Wales Cup Team of the Decade podcast, where we embark on what could be a nearly impossible journey to sift through players and pick a New South Wales Cup Team of the Decade. We've got some news. First, I'd like to welcome my guest, Steve Russo. He's a former Rugby League Week journalist, now doing some stuff with the Newtown Jets. I saw a great article today, Steve, about when the mighty Melbourne Storm came to Henson Park. Mate, how's things?
Yeah, good, thanks, Prez. Just hanging in there, living the dream, doing some stuff in Newtown, other projects on the side, but always a pleasure to see you. Known you for a little while now, and I always look forward to our chats.
Well, we've sort of had a chat amongst doing some interviews for this podcast this week, and firstly, there's been a big, like a big-ish sort of take-up within the community. We've had former players get involved and want to talk to us. Justin Hunt will have a big shout-out. We put the podcast out on our social medias and stuff, and he was contacting us straight away to have a chat. So next week we're going to get to Justin Hunt. This week we rolled into a couple of player interviews who we'll touch on later. But first, let's talk what we're going to do. And we think it's very hard at doing this to give everyone the respect they deserve. So what we sort of came to, and I'll mention Terry. Terry couldn't get on tonight because of some family duties, but we sort of came to the decision of I think we think we should do a New South Wales Cup team only. So like that's New South Wales Cup players. So if you played more than 25 NRL games, and I'm pretty happy to set it on 25, we can readjust if some players miss out that we think must be in it. But that's what I think an average NRL player plays in the NRL. So if you're below that, we're considering you for the New South Wales Cup Team of the Decade. And then we'll just pick, which I think would be quite a handy team, a New South Wales Cup New South Wales Cup graduates. Yeah, so the best players to use the New South Wales Cup as a platform to graduate into first grade and propel themselves onto other levels of football.
Yeah, I like it.
Yep, so, there's obviously going to be some big names. There's going to be plenty of debate. We've had the chats to players this week and they've thrown names up. We've got names that we think. There's going to be debate whether, like a guy like Sam Anderson who's played New South Wales Cup but then gone up to play Q Cup, do you exclude him? Personally, I don't think so because it's that level. What's your take on that sort of stuff?
No, I'm inclined to agree with you. The one thing I would want to bring up with you, we have this 25 games of first grade. What do we do with blokes who play a handful of first grade games but end up having a reasonably long career in the Super League?
Well, well, maybe we go case by case. If there's a guy that, we'll see, do you count Super League? Well, I suppose we can. This is where it's going to get too nitty gritty where, see, like a guy like Kevin Nagama, I don't know off the top of my head how many first grade games he's played.
No, he would have got over 20.
Well, so he could be. That's the thing. He's a graduate. I think you will find a very small pocket of blokes that have graduated to go from Cup over to Super League who push that Cup selection. So,
yeah, that's true,
but then I'm intended to put. I'm more, not intended. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm more inclined to say Cup level first, then worry about Super League. So if he's been a solid servant of the Cup and played, 4 seasons and then gone, all right, I'm not getting anywhere in the Cup, I'll go over and play 3 or 4 years in the Super League, that's fine by me. I'm not worried about the Super League stuff. I'm worried about what he's done in the Cup first, then that.
Oh, excuse me.
That's all right, mate. It's been a long night too. So, yeah, that's what I think we do. I'm sure there's going to be some people that don't agree with it, but I think to cover the amount of people we want to cover, to use some big names in a team that shows what the competition's produced, we need to do it like that. But we also need to pay respects to blokes who have played New South Wales Cup their whole career and have been very good at it. They just have been...
I agree, 100%.
Yeah, I don't think wrong place in the wrong time is the right word, but they've just been happy to play New South Wales Cup. Like, there's no crime against that. Some guys, I'm sure they all wanted to play NRL at some time, but
surely only one level below. It's a pretty fair effort to get that high in the bloody ladder, even if you don't crack NRL.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. So I think we're all cool with that. I think what we do now is we're going to go interviewing people that we want to interview. Like, please let us know on social media. I think it's White Ant Sports. We're using Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all that sort of stuff. If you have people that you think we should interview, we definitely want to get to Justin Hunt next week. So he's definitely a one. See, he's a player that I think if you jumped around with those rules, I think he's around 22 NRL games. See, I think he's definitely a New South Wales Cup player, but also a handy first grader. But then if you start changing too many rules around and you miss players like him, which I don't think is fair. So we'll hopefully get in touch with him next week to have a good chat. So yeah, make sure you get us in the links we'll be posting on social media. There's a little link where you can leave voice messages for us. I think you just got to sign up for an Anchor account, which is just your email. So we want you to leave us voice messages who you think should be nominated for either of those sides. I'll put them in the articles that we put up on our website, that this is the criteria, and there's going to be we'll put this link up so you can nominate, and we'll play anyone who wants to put their nominations in. We'll put their nominations in. We'll play them down the line on one of the podcasts. But I think we've spoken to Mitch Williams and Josh Manolato this week. So today we're going to roll into Mitch Williams' interview, and then tomorrow, the next podcast, we're going to roll into Josh Manolato's interview. They were massive interviews, really long. We had to cut them down because the boys just love talking to us. What's not to love? But Steve, do you want to add anything?
No, I think this is pretty solid. I'm really excited to share these two chats that we've had. Both very interesting, great couple of yarns, and good blokes, both of them. It was really good sitting down to talk to Mitch and Josh, two Central Coast boys. Yeah,
but what I think most, and what I've really liked is there's a lot of love out there for the Cup from these blokes who I call pro Cup men, is what I say. But for a player like Justin Hunt to automatically not even be approached, but then go, hey, I want to be on this pod, I want to talk Cup, I think there should be more of it. Can I come on? That sort of says to me that, we're doing the right thing and people will want to get involved. Like, I've got a list of people that I think we should get involved from all sort of different facets of the New South Wales Cup who I think would be really good to talk to. But we don't have much more, so what we're going to do is we're going to roll the Mitch Williams interview, so we hope you all enjoy it. All right, we now welcome to the show Mitch Williams, a very special guest. He's been part of the fabric of the New South Wales Cup. He was 2013 New South Wales Cup Player of the Year, a 3-time New South Wales Cup Team of the Year member. He played for the Residents 4 times, captaining them 3 times, winning twice, and he played 2 grand finals. Mitch, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, good intro. I'm glad I sent that through to you.
Oh, mate, I actually did a bit of research, and believe me, it's hard. Thankfully, I've got Steve with us who's joining us. He told me about the old web archive, digging up the old 2012-13 New South Wales Rugby League website, which I used to work on. But a very, very important question first. This has plagued New South Wales Rugby League officers for a long time. Do you spell Morrie Breen Oval M-O-R-R-I-E or M-O-R-R-Y?
It's a Y.
Is it?
Yeah.
Mate, because I read a fair few places that it's M-O-R-R-I-E.
Yeah. It's like, I work at the club and have played there since I was a kid.
All right.
And it's one that gets me, but yeah, it's a Y.
All right, that's the official stamp from someone who's
I probably just said it wrong now, and that'll be it.
a doyen of the club. You are now, you've put it in stone. All right,
Yeah.
we'll go straight into, we'll talk your early career. You said before we come on the pod, you played 20s at South, a few games to North in the New South Wales Cup. But then what I'm most interested in is your country footy. So you said you're country player of the year at playing in the real NRL, which I love. It's the greatest name of all time, the Newcastle Rugby League. And then you took up a shot to go to the Knights in 2012. Talk us through that decision. It would have been hard moving from Wyong in, being a very strong Newcastle Rugby League club and making that step to go chase your dream with Rip Taylor at the Knights.
Yeah, I think definitely after my very short and brief 20s career and a few cup games for the Bears, I went back to Wyong. We won the comp that year. The next year I made the country team and got country player of the year. Next year made the country team again, and that's kind of when I decided at the end of 2011 to go and do a pre-season with Rip. He invited me to go to Newcastle, and a lot of hard work. It's not easy to do that part-time kind of role, but was lucky enough to play every game in 2012 with the Knights. Thankfully, had Josh Manolato there right beside me as my travelling buddy, which was a good thing and a bad thing at times. But yeah, I got back into it.
Sort of a big deal up that part of the way. People I've worked with, Jamie, who's up from that way, Wyong leaving the Newcastle Rugby League, like doing some research, they'd been in that comp for 100 years. Like, how did that go down up that way, Wyong making the step into, as we roll into 2013, where you leave the Knights and then go to Wyong, taking that New South Wales Cup team into the first season?
Yeah, obviously a really big decision. Rick Stone was coaching the Knights Cup side and had offered me to stay there again, but I thought my progress had probably been stalled. I got Newcastle's Player of the Year in 2012 at Cup level, and then wasn't offered a full-time contract. So I found it hard to believe that I was going to get a crack. Paul Stringer, who I already had been coached by, was starting up something at my junior club that I thought could be really special, and it turns out it was a really good move for me. But yeah, obviously a lot of people had different opinions about what Wyong were trying to do. Going into that competition with no feeder team is a huge move. In 2012, West played without a feeder team, and we played them twice with Newcastle and beat them by 70 both times. So yeah, I was well aware of the hard work that was going to be in front of me.
That decision to move to the Roos, was saying, you mentioned it would have been a pretty tough year with no NRL backing.
Yep.
What did you guys move out of that season thinking what we need to do? Like, we would have had a tough year with no NRL stars and all that sort of stuff, but what did you think moving into that next season you needed to do, in the off season?
I think that the amount of growth and development, that there was a core group of us, probably 10 of us, that played nearly every game that year, and we were all sticking around again the next year. And we thought if we could add some bits to it, then we'd be a stronger team next year. And we were lucky enough that we won 5 games that first year and pushed a lot of teams that we got a little bit of credibility, and a few guys that finished their 20s career and hadn't got a start elsewhere had decided to join Wyong. And in 2014, we made the second week of the finals with no NRL affiliation, which is credit to Rip when he was coaching there, and the hard work that all the boys had put in.
Yeah, so we'll jump back a little. Do you want to say something, Steve? Sorry.
It was 2014 the years you guys made it with, where Ogre came back from overseas, yeah. Mark O'Mealy.
So 2014, Ogre obviously came back as well and gave our club some real steel, and obviously was a great leader. And as I mentioned, him and Magnus Stromquist in the front row, they really laid a great platform, and then players just started to grow and grow. We had blokes like Leavaha Pulu, coming through. Aloni Vodakefi was there at that time. Guys that had gone on to play NRL, that, careers were dead in the water, essentially.
Yeah. We'll jump back a little bit just to 2013. You make your first appearance for the Residents, which you captain, if I'm correct. And you beat them, which is massive. Like, the big thing from when I came into the end, New South Wales Rugby League, was about 2008, 2009. There was this massive stigma that their comp was better than ours by a country mile. And that was this thing you just had to swallow with these flogs on Twitter that would just sit there and hammer it. And then I think Steve and I talked in a pod before, and we sort of said that 2012, 2013 was the renaissance of the comp. Like, it was just, they had that year in 13 where Balmain, Newtown, the Bears all made the finals, and everyone sort of got back into it. But was that a massive deal? Like, it was a massive deal for me as a New South Wales Rugby League person, but was it a massive deal to that playing group in that resident side?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, Rip Taylor was coach. There was 5 or 6 players from my 2012 Newcastle team that had made that side as well. There was a really good core group of us all together. Probably one of the most special nights I've ever had. That was when the Residents was still played before the State of Origin game, so it was a Wednesday night at ANZ Stadium. The crowd's starting to build. We beat them in a close game, and I had my family there, my wife, now my family, like 20 friends that got tickets to the game to watch. Like, it was, thinking about it now still like really brings back that time, and that was 7 years ago. So.
Yeah. So you finished 2013. You're the Player of the Year, which is a massive deal. Did that? I don't know. It's always something we sort of thought that, does that make a ripple off the field? Like, you get named Player of the Year for a pretty big comp. Like, it's essentially the second best rugby league comp. I think the world, because I'm not a big fan of Super League, but no disrespect to players that play in it. But did it make ripples in your ocean, so to speak? Like, did you get any offers to go anywhere else? Did you, think about trying to chase your NRL dream at another club, or?
I think after I made the Residents and we won, and there started to get a bit of traction, and then obviously when I got Player of the Year, there was a bit more, and clubs were interested in talking to my manager. It was a bit of a strange one because I was 25 at the time, so I guess a lot of clubs had kind of wondered, where I'd spent the last few years, really, I guess. Bit unknown. Obviously, my size is something that clubs have taken into account, but there was definitely a fair bit of talk. I definitely wanted to play NRL. That was my goal the whole time. do that. It's something obviously I didn't get to do quite there, but there was a bit of talk, but unfortunately just nothing eventuated.
Yeah, sorry, can I just chime in here?
No,
just during your time at the Knights, was there any chance of a first grade call up? Was there a time where they said, "Oh, you get your boots on, you're doing the captain's run with the first grade side or something like that"?
So I did some sessions with the first grade side, but yeah, there was Josh's story. I wish that was my story, getting that call up and getting the call to come to train and that, but it didn't happen. And as I mentioned, I got Player of the Year in the Knights team, and Rick Stone said that he'd like me to there, but I don't know if Wayne Bennett was a fan of mine or not. I'm assuming not, because I didn't get that run. The Knights weren't going crash hot at the time. But yeah, I guess that, one person's opinion, I was just trying to move on.
So how does that, it's always been an interest of me, you know how that happens for first tier players, but how does that all roll out with you being a second tier contracted player? Hearing that, we're just going to offer you another contract. Does it come through your manager? Do you just get a text from one of the footy staff saying, "Mate, we'd love to keep you on next year"? Is it all official through managers and stuff like that?
Yeah, for me, it wasn't official through managers. Rick Stone just, called me up and said, "Let's have a meeting." I met him, and it was pretty simple like that. He showed me what they could offer me, and as you're aware, second tier contracts for NRL clubs aren't exactly where they're throwing their big money. No. So, that was weighed up, and obviously it wasn't about much thought about the opportunity that would present itself. And I thought after the year I had in 2012, I'd probably deserved to do a full pre-season, whether I was in the top squad or not, and that didn't happen. So that's when I decided to leave.
You mentioned Ogre before coming in 14.
Yep.
What so the club goes on to win 13 games, so 8 more than that season before, and that's probably a bit of a testament to yourself, the playing group, Rip, that still without an NRL partner, you've gone and improved more to win more games. What is in the fair income department? As much as I'm a Roosters fan, I say it all the time, but Mark O'Mealy was part of the fact that he's probably one of the most dominant in modern times, if not, throughout the history of the NRL. You mentioned some of those guys already, but what sort of effect did he have on a team? He strikes me as a bloke that you would love to have standing next to you in a defensive line, because, there's no way in the world he's missing a tackle.
Yeah, I mean, on the field is one thing, but the work off the field he did with us as well, especially so many of the younger forwards that finished 20s careers, or just the work he put into them. We're talking about a bloke that has trained Boxing Day every year for the last 20 years, because he said that no one else would be training that day. So he's got that kind of mentality. We're talking about a bloke that's tough as nails as well. I mean, he probably cleaned up with as many of our teammates as he did the opposition, but it's a bit of a thrill to get to play next to a bloke that kind of caliber, to come back and do his work at Wyong.
Yeah, and that's all part of that renaissance too, I think, of the Cup, where you started to get these big guys coming back and still wanting to have a run in the competition and all that sort of stuff. So the end of 14, you make the finals, if I'm correct. I think you finished second week. So you end up losing to Wenny in the semis. Yep. Do you remember much about that game?
I remember heaps.
Yeah.
We got ahead. We got ourselves in a game-winning position, and we threw an intercept, and they ran 90 metres forward, and that kind of broke our backs.
Yeah. There's some pretty strong teams that year. I suppose 13 would have been the one. The 13 was the one where I think the Sharks won in 13. I think wasn't that they were just unbeatable. No one was beating the Sharks.
That was the Cronulla Storm.
The Cronulla Storm,
Storm. That was one hell of a team. I listened on the podcast the other day, but going through Chad Townsend, Tyrone Peachy, Tupasamba Wonga, they had Ricky Latelli, just a pretty much an unfair team.
Yeah, I reckon that team, you roll that team out against some of the lesser NRL teams, it'd give them a real shot. Even that year, you'd sit and you go, hang on, geez, that team could give them a real shot on their day. I reckon they could beat most of them. So we'll roll into 2015. You get a call up for the Roosters to play in the Nines. So how did that all roll out? Did you train with them in pre-season? What was the Nines experience like?
Yep, so end of 2014, obviously after we'd done so well, the Roosters were looking for a new reserve grade team, essentially. And that was a partnership that we joined. And once we joined that, I was offered to go down there and do pre-season training and train full-time as my job, which was obviously something. I think I was 27, turning 27 that year, so something I'd waited a long time to do. So down to the Roosters and train my ass off, train as hard as I could, travelling down there and training every day. And lucky enough that Robbo sat the team down, the whole squad down, and named the Roosters 18-man squad to go over, and I was in it.
So who'd you room with over in Auckland?
I roomed with Brendan Elliott, and he's about as laid back as it gets. So, had it pretty easy. I'm a Sydney Roosters supporter myself as well, so it's a pretty cool thing to the team that you support and players that I've spent a lot of time looking up to get to run beside them.
And how's Robbo as a coach? I like to sit there and wax lyrical. He's the best coach ever, but is he as methodical as they say? I know it would have been a bit more relaxed in the Nines environment, but
still not relaxed.
No, okay.
Yeah, he's everything that you've probably heard good is probably true. He is one of the smartest men I've ever met in football. Obviously, I haven't worked under all the coaches, but yeah, there's a reason why the Roosters have just gone back to back. He trains them every day to get better, and they do get better every day. So.
All right, so you roll out of that into the New South Wales Cup. You have a very, very good year. Yep. How long through the season did you realise, hang on, we're actually a shot? Like everyone, I sit back and I've played in teams with a different code, but you sit back in teams and you're like, we're pretty good. Like, I think we could win the comp. Like, you play the better teams, you're like, yeah, I reckon we can beat them on our day. It doesn't matter where it is. When did you get that feeling that you were playing a team where you're playing through that season, you think, well, we reckon we can win it all?
I think after 2014, doing how well we did without the NRL players coming back, I thought if we can get a few good players from the Roosters squad coming back each week, we're going to really give it a shake. We played Manly in the first round, and I think they had a pretty decent team, and we beat them by 30 or 40, and that kind of gave me the inkling, like, geez, when we get it right, we could really give this a shot. And throughout the year, a few different things happened, but the whole time I kind of thought, we're going to be a real chance. We're going to be really, really hard to beat this year.
So you get through your mate. I think, do you finish minor premise? Is it minor premise that year?
We miss it by 1 for and against point to Mounties.
Oh, so you roll through the finals. You pump Penrith, who are always strong at that level.
Yes.
You pump another team, the Bulldogs, who are always strong at that level. Walk us through the finals, and we'll quickly touch on the grand final, if that's okay.
Yeah, so played Penrith in that first semi at Penrith and had some really good games with them that year previously already. I think we only a couple of points had separated us each time. So as you know, Penrith always great at that level. Got the better of them, had the week off, played a Bulldogs team that had plenty of talent as well, and we're lucky enough to get off to a pretty good start and put them away. And then probably, I guess, played the Knights in the grand final, who had really come from nowhere. We'd beaten them twice that year already, and I guess it's the old adage of saving your worst till last. But full credit to them, they came out and played a game that we probably weren't expecting, a style that we weren't expecting them to play, and unfortunately, they got the better of us.
New South Wales Cup series, final series, are like no other, because it's never just 1 and 2 in the grand final, because all teams are different, because it depends where your NRL team is, if coaches want them playing, because I don't know if the rule's still the same to this day, but back when I was there, that if an NRL team is playing in the finals, it doesn't matter if, say Israel Folau's at South, and if the coach didn't want him in first grade, he could go and play New South Wales Cup, because that's what the comp's there for. It's there to provide for the first grade. So those New South Wales Cup series are never the same. So it's always hard to get through. But so I think, where did the Knights finish that year? I think they might have been a bit further down the ladder.
Yeah, they were a bit. I'm not even sure they were top 4. I think they got helped a little by some players coming back.
Yeah.
But it seemed like they just got things right towards the back end of the year. Which, when you start getting players back at cup level like that and getting them week to week, I think that's the biggest help in that competition.
Yeah, but I remember seeing, and it's sometimes it derails final series with that, because
For sure.
I remember seeing Windsor. I think it was Windsor maybe the year they played the Cronulla in 13, that they had a fair few players coming back from Penrith, but then Penrith went out, and all these players were like, nah, we're not coming back. We're going to go and get on the syrup with the boys, and that just, you had three or four blokes ready to come back and make your team really strong, and then they all just bail, and you're sort of thrown under the bus, so to speak.
We had that in 2015. The Roosters were knocked out before we'd reached the grand final.
Yeah.
We were lucky. We had a really good, strong group of guys that had been playing a lot of the time with us already. But it's definitely different for them to go from full-time training to then the few nights a week with us as well.
So is that, we'll get to the other grand final later. But did you think at any time during the game you guys were going to get it? Did you always think the Knights were going to have you? You get that sense of when you're playing. Did you have a feeling that 20 minutes in you thought they were going to get you, or were you confident you guys could come back?
20 minutes in, I didn't like how everything was going. It wasn't that we were getting beaten by a lot or anything. At halftime, I had the same feeling. I didn't like how things were going. I was confident because I knew that we had a lot of points in us, but it just seemed like, a few things that we normally do so well, we weren't really clicking with them that day. And that, that's a troubling thing, when the playmakers aren't getting everything as crisp, we're not making the same meters as we usually do. I think that's when you start to notice a different, and the energy they played with that day, the Knights, was just incredible.
I know this sounds like a bit of a cliched question, but do you think it's something like nerves that kind of caused you guys to be a bit off your game, or like, I'm not a footy player, so I've never been in a high situation where I've been in situations where I recognise things aren't right. But from your perspective, you said from within 20 minutes you noticed things weren't right. What do you kind of put that down to?
I guess nerves is one thing. How you handle them and how that affects, how you play. Like I said, they beat us with energy and enthusiasm, which are non-negotiables, really. No matter what happens on the field, you can control those things, and they beat us to them every time, pretty much. And in a game where it's so small, those little plays that they were making that we weren't were the difference.
Cool. We'll roll into 17 now. Oh no, so 2016. So another year and another victory over the Queensland Residents. We won't mention the other two that we lost. But so this was played in Tamworth, but before City Country. Is that it?
No. So this was played. They'd moved it to Queensland. So
I think it was Torquay before, but then they moved it up to. Was it East at East home ground?
Yes, correct.
Yeah, cool. So you beat them up there with a pretty handy side. Ken Mamalo scores 3 tries. He's one of the best try scorers in the NRL now, but.
I think him and Barita Farima were our wingers. So, if you're going to start a set-off, you might as well...
give it to those two, mate. So how... I don't know. It's my thing with that game is it's hard to explain it to a general rugby league fan who just doesn't really understand how much that game means to people. Yeah. Like, that... It's sort of bragging rights for the two comps. And I know that national championship is a little bit of it now, but it's not really for me. This is the sort of, and even it's hard to put on the thing because Queenslanders don't understand our comp, and I'm sure we don't understand theirs to a T. But the amount of times you sit in selection rooms where you'd pick a team for this New Zealand Cup rep team, and then 5 or 6 blokes would just get yanked before you even it's absolute mayhem, and that to put it together and win a game is a massive deal for that competition and that fixture. So, we talk broadly about how the progression of the Cup's gone from 2008 through to now. Where did you think, obviously in 2008, 9, 10 a little bit, it was tough with the 20s because a lot of clubs are invested heavily in the 20s. That was supposed to be the be-all and end-all. Where did you see on that timeline that the New Zealand Cup was starting to come back to a bit of, prominence and a bit of power?
I think, obviously, I played in 08 and then didn't play. 08, I didn't make the 20s team at South, and I was getting sent to play New South Wales Cup, which probably shows you where everyone was kind of putting it at that time. Then 2012, when I got back to Newcastle, we had an unbelievable team at Newcastle. We had, Junior South, Siatonga Licky, Marvin Filippo, Robbie Rocco, all these games, Richie Fayoso was playing in the front row for us. Yeah. Matt Hill coming back and playing. And that's when I thought, geez, coaches are starting to give this competition a lot more credit. They're not just sitting out 5 blokes to not play each weekend, which I think was something that really happened at a lot of clubs.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's hard. We used to, and it all depends on which club you're at too. We always used to have to say this thing where different clubs take it differently. For some, it's just a place to drop a couple of players, like Manly. I'm not saying they don't care about it, but it's not their priority. They'll have Blacktown workers where they can dump, 6 or 7 players. Where the Roosters might be in the same situation, but they buy in differently. They might, send players up twice a week versus, some club might just drop them back there on a Friday. So it's always hard to sort of to fathom that, and you don't know every single club's sort of situation. But no, it's interesting to see that's when we thought the 2012s, 13s, and then onwards has been that sort of jump up of the competition. So at the end, we'll roll into the final series in 16. So you make it
just incidentally.
Yeah, go.
How nuts! I find it nuts to think that clubs would prioritise their NYC teams over the New South Wales Cup teams. Like, obviously, the NYC was seen as a big deal for the comp, succeeding Jersey Flaggers under 20s. But like, the fact is, and I know it's against cliche, you need to play against men, and from that regard, New South Wales Cup should have always been a step up from NYC. Ditto Queensland Cup from an NYC. A Queensland-based NYC team. I just thought I'm frankly very surprised that the priorities were like that, even at one point or another.
Yeah, definitely. I think playing New South Wales Cup for so long, and every year that we were with the Roosters, we'd get a fresh batch of their 20s from the year before, and they would be the first to say how different it was. They said sometimes the speed in 20s might be faster, but the caliber of players and the defence and the grind for the victories is totally different.
Yeah, because no one's tackling. It's easy. It's everyone's running up and down the field the whole game.
I said, remember when we saw that we've got to tackle next?
Yeah, exactly right. That's what I think. And you could still see it in blokes like Latrell's games when he came from 20s to NRL. You could tell he was good, but he let a try happen at one end, and you just think that he could roll up the next end and beat 5 blokes and score. It's like, mate, you're not in 20s anymore. This is the NRL. You're just not going to be able to do that, because on the other end's probably Will Chambers, the best defensive centre in the comp at that time. It's it's just the whole thing for me with that 20s was just, it did my head in. But that was I think the deal was, it was pretty heavily subsidised from the league level, so it didn't cost much money.
It pumped up a few fellas' career. Like, also, my South 20s team, all the guys that were 20 that year, barely any of them went on to play anything.
Yeah.
That's what I've noticed. It's the blokes who have had a stint in New South Wales Cup after 20s that tend to be the ones who kick on. Yeah. Like, look at Ben Barber, had that period with Bankstown Bulls. Yeah, Josh Reynolds, I think he was probably a little too old for NYC, but he was someone who would have probably been playing the old Jersey flag and then would have gone up and had to spend a long time in New South Wales Cup. It is a really good breeding ground. You need to do it at some point to become a fully fledged first.
For playmakers as well, especially you need. I know Trent Hodkinson did New South Wales Cup and Queensland Cup, and I know Cherry did Queensland Cup. I think for playmakers, there's no way in the world you think you're going to be close to playing your best at 2021. I think that's too much to ask of most young halves.
Yeah, and young forwards too is the same.
Definitely.
And it's that half a second you probably don't have. 20s you might have an extra half a second, then that gets cut in half at New South Wales Cup level, then right up to the NRL. By the time you're thinking about where you're going to pass, you've already been smashed.
Definitely,
One story. I'm not going to say the player's name because I don't know if the story is true, but I did hear this story around the time when Wayne Bennett was at the Dragons and a certain player was playing in the 20s, and he said to Wayne said, "Oh, I want you to go up and play for Shell Harbour." And the kid goes, "Oh no, I'm pretty happy just playing 20s." And Wayne goes, "Not a problem, mate." And this kid was a very, very good half. And he's never gone on to play NRL. He played New South Wales Cup at a couple of clubs and then just went back. But it's amazing to see, that was the attitude back then, because they were flown around and treated like superstars. That's 100%. Why.
When I played South 20s, we're travelling to Auckland with the first grade squad. Whilst I played at Bears that year as well, and the treatment when we went to New Zealand was a little bit different. I can tell you that. So.
Bobby Saunders saving money, mate. Don't take money. But what the big thing for me was with that is the 20s jump. It's sort of changed through where clubs even, we hammer it in our communications at New South Wales Rugby League where he got elevated. But then in that 13, 14, 15, clubs started buying into the whole, he's been elevated from 20s into New South Wales Cup. And I think that's when it started to hit home that coaches were sort of wanting that.
I think now you see a lot of 18, 19-year-olds playing New South Wales Cup instead of playing 20s. They might have had a really good 20s year before, and then the next year they'll come at cup level and see how they go against, I guess, essentially men or more seasoned footballers, I guess. Yeah,
but you're going to get blokes like Latrell, like Israel Folau that don't need New South Wales Cup, but there's going to be a fair chunk of blokes that need New South Wales Cup to further their rugby league development and then jump into into that next level. All right, we'll roll into 2017 now. So it's another big year for the Roos and Roosters affiliation. I think you guys finished minor premiers that year, so you're 2 wins clear of the Warriors. In the finals, you see the Bulldogs in week 1, the Warriors in week 2, in a team that was pretty handy. It had Charles Clockstad, Isaiah Papali'i, Jazz Tavanga, Ofahiki Ogden. That's just to name a few. It's probably a bit of a different final series, but how did Rip approach it, knowing that you guys were the team to beat? Like in years before, you've been chasing that team to beat, but this time you were the number one.
Yeah, I guess that was something. I guess everything went pretty well for us in the finals. We played the Bulldogs that year, who had a great team, and we just seemed to have great battles with them. We beat them in extra time in that semi-final, but they were a very classy team. Was stacked full of good players. Then had the week off and played the Warriors to get in the grand final, and they were just, as you named before, just a big mobile. So I think we beat them like 16-12. Yeah. Just in a really, really hard game, and then get to that grand final against Penrith, played out at Leichhardt at night time, I guess. So.
Yeah, no, I went up to see that. It's just up the road from my house. The 8th wonder of the world, Steve. Loves a joint. He's a Balmain fan, Steve. Froths on it.
I don't think I was there. What year was this, 2016?
17. Yeah,
I was going to season.
Yeah, no, I went up to watch it. But you ran into a fairly decent Panthers team. I'll just read a few names. Maika Sivo, Viliami Kikau, Liam Martin, and there was a few others who have, I think, what's the young kid's name? Is it Clark? Oliver Clark? Who are pushing first grade selection now. These blokes are, international stars.
Havili was playing hooker. Darren Nichols was steering the ship. Jerome Luai was there.
Yeah, so a very decent side. And then they go on to flog the Hunters. I remember covering that for the NRL. So, if you look at it in a broad sense, it's not a bad year considering you're probably the second best team. The second best team in either comp.
I get it. It is. It was a really good season. They've had players that they were probably really at the beginnings of their real really strong careers, and everything was going well until half time and Mike Acevo scored that try, and everything just kind of turned to shit for us, really.
Yeah. Well, he's going to need plenty of that. He's probably going to score another 30 this year, so I don't think it's.
He possibly will.
Yeah, he's
not just us anyway.
Yeah, exactly right. He's doing it to NRL teams. So we'll roll into 2018. So this is this when the Roosters? So you scrape into the 8, and this is
the
last year of the affiliation. Yeah. So you push the premier, the eventual premiers of Bulldogs all the way in the quarterfinals, but come up 10 points short. Yep. You personally, after that GF, do you know that's your last year? Do you go, I'm pretty much cooked now. I just want to go back, play some local footy for Wyong, all that sort of stuff. Was that rolling through your head after you've had 1,000 on Mad Monday and the eventual week that it finishes, or?
Yeah, so I guess when I found out the decision that the Roosters and Wyong we're going to separate, I guess that gave me a bit of time to start thinking about what I was going to do. I was 30 that year, and I was thinking I didn't think I had it in me to travel and try and play New South Wales Cup somewhere else and start again.
Yeah.
So I guess really I hadn't thought about how long I'd play Cup for before that. I did kind of think maybe I could go to Queensland and have a crack, but I was really happy on the Central Coast and at home and in my job. So I made the decision to play A grade and that being my last kind of game of Cup.
Yeah. So are you true? Listening to the podcast you did before with Sowie, captain coach of the Roos?
Yes, this year.
Are you Rip Taylor 2.0?
I've been told that a fair few times.
Bend your back.
We shared an office at one stage, so I'm living behind the desk now.
Does he have a computer there that's just for show? Like he just never uses it? It's like a bit of cardboard or something?
That much dust on the keyboard.
He's just using the hammer and chisel, is he?
Yeah. Just these damn Excel documents. It's like me. I hate Excel. It's the worst program ever.
Spreadsheet. So.
Talking about Rip, he's obviously been a massive influence on your career, pretty much from the Knights, then at Wyong. Yep. To the common rugby league fan who doesn't know Rip Taylor, give us an overview of Rip.
Firstly, Google Ric Flair to get the image of.
Woo!
Start with that. Rip. How do you explain him? He's so old school in everything he does, but I've never seen a coach get a team to win like he does. I don't know what it is. I think it's that special thing that, he adapted his game and got more advanced with plays and skills and that. But he would be the first to say that that's not his strength. But man managing and getting players to perform, I mean, his record speaks for himself. He just, he made another grand final in New South Wales Cup last year. He gets teams to win.
Yeah, I could see a smirk on your face, Steve. Steve works for Newtown at the moment, Mitch. He was loving the Billy Magoulias miracle, mate. I was just as much as I was loving it when they tore their hearts out of the Queensland fans when Ferris scored that try in the national championship. People in the office. 2 weeks in a row. How good was I was in the office absolutely fist pumping. But one thing
they didn't deserve to win. Look, seriously, I'm Newtown through and through, but did not deserve to win that national championship. I was sitting with a mate, and I turned when Magoulias put that kick in. I wasn't even looking at watching the game. I was over. I'm just talking to my mate, and then he puts that kick through, and I said, "Oh, he might get this as a joke," and he got it.
Yeah, I'm always happy with Queensland misery. So. But we'll jump back to Rip. My take on Rip, and I've dealt with him a fair few times, I reckon he's a champion of a bloke. I think a coach like him, when you say that old school style, it helps at that level because sometimes we've talked about there's two types of first graders that you get back. You get a bloke who's, hang on, I'm going to take this on the chin and I'm going to fire up and I'm going to make Robbo or whoever pick me again next week by having a super game. Or you get a bloke who's come back kicking stones and doesn't want to be there. He's on a Buster Wenny going, what the fuck is this? I don't want to be here, all that sort of stuff. Where Rip Taylor would just go, mate, put your ego away. I don't care who you are. Bend your back, make a tackle, do your job, and you'll get back in the first grade.
I think you've obviously spent a bit too much time with him because that literally is like him. So,
mate.
But yeah, that was how he kind of operated, And he literally would say to him, you can come back kicking stones, or you can come back here playing a good footy team. Enjoy it without some of maybe the pressures that go along with the NRL footy as well. Obviously, we're not looking to make mistakes, but you probably can have a little more freedom in your game if you've got a few other things that you want to try in your game. Where at the NRL level, obviously, a lot of things are scrutinised, and you don't have that necessarily that free to play whatever you kind of want to do.
And what was life like off the field with Rip? Like, what were bus trips like back home? Were they lively if you won, or what if you lost? Was it just heads down, bums up, or?
If we won, they were always good. Rip's a very enjoyable character. He's charismatic. But we did, in 2014, we were travelling to Penrith just to play a trial game. We were taking a very young team, and Penrith were playing a lot of their cup players. We watched a comedy, Bad Grandpa, on the way down. And anyway, so we're all laughing our ass off the whole bus trip. We've gone out and got absolutely flogged, which wasn't a huge surprise to me. Like I wasn't expecting to do that. And from that day on, I kid you not, he banned comedies.
That's the best.
We were never allowed to watch a comedy on the bus again. I swear, it lasted my whole cup career with him.
So
no
what?
Comedies. We watched war movies. His favourite movie of all time is 8 Mile.
Bullshit! We got to get him on this podcast too and hit him up about 8 Mile. That's outstanding gear.
What's his thoughts on Mum's spaghetti?
His favourite song is Lose Yourself. When we played Residents in 2013, the day of the game, he had the hotel speakers playing Lose Yourself on loop the whole day.
And he didn't even know. I can't remember what the name was. It wasn't Lose Yourself. There was something else. Brett McKenna will know. It was his song. And he made me download it, and he made me just hammer it when it might not have been 13, it might have been one of the other years he played, but
might have been. He loved Glory Days.
Glory Days, that was it.
What, Bruce Springsteen?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Mate.
Glory Days.
Yeah, that was it, mate. That was it. He made it absolutely smash it to the whole thing. It was hilarious. I couldn't stop laughing. I thought it was the best ever.
I think he's really
2015 grand final, so I've chosen not to listen to it ever again.
Brings back the horror memories.
He's he's got to be one of the most underappreciated kind of characters in rugby league. I mean, I remember when I used to work for League Week, I interviewed him a couple of times, and he had it seems weird, but he had this kind of aura about him. You could tell he was old school, but you couldn't help but respect him. It was a bit gruff, but he was you could tell he was really switched on.
I think he scared the shit out of most Roosters players that came back each week. So, and then, when we did full-time training with the NRL boys, we were at Hargraves, Mitchell Pearson, they just loved him. They were fascinated.
They'd froth on him, eh?
they just can't get enough of everything about him, you know.
Because it'd be something they wouldn't have seen, like they may have gear stewards that have been there for 30 years and that sort of stuff, but not a bloke that's been through the school of hard knocks, like captain coached on the North Coast and play. Mate, you could have a dead set 10 podcast series on the life and times of Rip Taylor, mate. I'd love to do it. It's something I just need to know who the right people to ring are and find out some stories.
They're going to finish Michael Jordan's Netflix documentary, I think.
Mate, The Last Dance, but it's all just Bruce Springsteen.
and Lose Yourself.
Yeah, Lose Yourself. Lose Yourself is like the grand final episodes. I want to go back all the way back to, I think it was 2013 from listening to your podcast from Sowie, because I nearly wet myself when I was in my kitchen listening to it.
2012.
2012 was it? I saw you at the Knights. Okay, so 2012. What was it? I can't even say it. Preliminary final against Balmain?
No, the Bears. So I think we finished top 4 and we're playing the Bears.
Yeah. Okay. So who do we name the player? Like, it's already out there on the internet.
No, we don't. We don't name Sam Anderson again.
Okay, we won't name Sam Anderson again. One of the doyens of the New South Wales Cup and Queensland Cup level 2. Oh, looking back too, he's made a fair few residents. Like, he made a team of the year, I think, with us. He's made a couple of residents teams, hasn't he?
Listening to your podcast the other day, I think he played residents 7 years straight between New South Wales and Queensland.
Jesus.
Honestly, he'd get my vote 100%. One of the absolute stalwarts of Cup.
Yeah. And a champion bloke too, so that always helps.
I've just gone on his Wikipedia page. I'm pretty sure his picture is him playing at Henson Park and Albert Kelly's in the background.
Wow.
And it's just a picture that some punters has taken.
Is that when
if that's not team of the decade, then what is? You know?
Yeah, no. Well, that's why I think that you need the team of just New South Wales Cup players who he would, like if pushing me, he would probably be in. But so tell us what happens. So is it off the kickoff, first half, second half?
No, he's coming off the bench in the first half. So obviously you've only got limited interchange. So he's come off the bench in the semi-final. We've got off to a really good start. He said he's had his first hit up. And he's ran at the opposition team's hooker, which I think was Brendan McKinnon, who's a smallish bloke.
Yeah, but could hit too, Brendan McKinnon, though.
Yeah. Anyway, so McKinnon's dipped down on him and, dipped down and come up and just shoulder straight in the gut, and he reckons the moment it hit him, he just felt something straight go in his pants, and he's just gone, what's going on here? Anyway, so we've scored not long after, and he's trying to grab the towel off the trainer, to kind of...
you can't do the towel!
And we're like... We didn't know what's going on. Anyway, we've gone to a scrum about 5 minutes later, and a few of the other players on the other team are like, what is that smell? And everyone's like, rank. And anyway, he's calling other people names, going like, oh, someone's dropped their guts. Like, who's this? We're going like, what's going on? We get to half time. He's raced in, and he's in the shower, and we're going, what's going on? Anyway, he comes back out with a plastic bag with his, his skins and whatever in it that he's putting back in his bag. And Rip's trying to have this big talk, and a few of us just, laughing our ass off. He's trying to sit next to me. I'm like, mate, you can't put that in your bag right now. He's like, yeah, I just shut yourself.
Imagine the smell of the change room when you got back.
Rip's trying to talk, and everyone's just like, Rip, whatever you say doesn't matter, because Sam literally just played 20 minutes.
With shit in his dags. So, oh, man.
Yeah. Imagine trying to tackle him.
I feel sorry for him.
Imagine you get the tackle, when the head end eventually ends up on the bum. Oh, I hope he does. I hope he listens to this and we get him on and he come on and can explain, because there's so many questions. What did he eat that day? What do you eat if you just cop something in the guts and you just go bang? Did you have some dodgy vindaloo or something like that the night before?
I've still talked to him, regularly now. And I still don't know what he ate, but God help the Bears' defence that day, So
that's definitely an untold rugby league story podcast in itself. That one, the day Sam Anderson touched cloth on Leichhardt Oval.